So this is, I think I need to open it in Excel so it's more clear for you. Okay, here you can see it's a file which is in the format of CSV. So remember, a lot of beginner students, when they want to upload the data into SmartPLS, somehow the format is wrong and it's not picking the file. Okay, it picks the file, but then when you want to draw your model, you are not able to connect. Okay, so if the file is not in CSV format, you will have issues, you know, to run your variables. Somehow you can upload, but it will not show the data. The second part is that as I started, because some of you joined on time because we had a little discussion before the session. So remember one thing, being a research student, I recommend you put your data into SPSS, because we're not supposed to do everything in SmartPL, especially your background data statistic, meaning that descriptive statistics, right? Although now SmartPLS is so sophisticated, it calculates for you the normality, a mean, everything, but the demographic variable, somehow to run some extra outlier test, I always recommend student to, because the issue with the Excel in SPSS, let's say if I want to feed this data, this is outcome number one. I hope it will be not that big, but I just want to increase the size so you can see. Okay, suppose this is variable ID number one. This is my participant number one who answered question on pro-environmental behavior one. Okay, this is respondent number one. Answer to question number one based on the Likert scale 1 to 5, right? So 3 is mean neutral, 4 mean agree. This is your questionnaire questions. So here, if I want to, in basically in SPSS, this data will come in column, not will row. While in SmartPLS, this data come in horizontal in a row. So when you want to copy paste later on, you have to do the labor work. Copy this one and then transpose it. Copy, paste, and transpose option you can see. So I mean to say, if your data in SmartPLS, in SPSS feed, I have that in other machine. I'll show you some other time. So it's better because you can convert to this format, you can reconvert to that format, and you can also run those tests for different types of analysis. So I think the first thing is you need to make sure when you're uploading the file, you need to check in which format it is. So this is a file. If I go to the properties, get info, so I have to make sure that this file is in a what do you call it, in a CSV format. Okay, so it's here. You need to make sure your file is there. Now I will open the SmartPLS format. Okay, for beginner, basically the SmartPLS come with two versions. Okay, the student version, which is free for 1 month, but it has limited applications. But professionals, you have to buy. So you have to, I think you can buy annually, right? For 1 year, for 2 years. Okay, this is the SmartPLS interface. Okay, if I want to go for info, and if I want to switch license, you can see here, this is my license. Okay, it's still valid for 257 days, and this is the key. So I think students get a little discount as well if you are affiliated with the university. So you have to mention the university name, and then there is some protocol from the, I mean, they want to see your identity, your email, and everything, and they will verify. So for students, I think there is a discounts of couple of, I think around 50 plus euro. So if you're a student and you're doing PhD, I recommend you buy once, because the benefit of this an official version, whenever they do a new software, a new update, it will immediately available to you. So while it's not available, yes, a lot of students use a cracked version. I mean, yes, at this stage, I know due to the financial constraints of the student, they use that. There is no harm in that. But remember one thing, if you are doing a good analysis, you should always have a version which is certified. Why? Because there are lots of updates coming and going. So I think you're not supposed to put yourself, because of some money, in a situation where you lose your data or you lose your analysis. So I would recommend that you can do that. Now, this is the interface when you open up the SmartPL. So the top menu, based on either you're using MacBook or Windows, slightly there is a interface difference, but we have, this is SmartPL. Okay, you can see here all, and they have embedded different data sets. Okay, these are some of my projects which is running, but they have their own data sets as well. So you can see here, if I click on the top, this SmartPL is book, corporate reputation, extended. These are different data available here. So if I click right away here, so I can see this model which is already available. Okay, these are 3 items. Okay, these are, I think they name it differently because I think these are just abbreviation of different variables. This is, I can see it's about global. Okay, so these data for beginners already available. You don't need to do anything. You have just to go to calculate, and if you want to run a measurement model, you PLS algorithm. Okay, here it's by default with the 300 iteration 7. Okay, so for beginner I'll keep it simple, so you have to switch it to factor analysis and then you just run. So this is the result shows here. Okay, so there are, let me just put it up a bit because this, okay, so if you can see here, if I click on this results, I can see all my outputs here. This is about the path coefficient. Okay, it's green, it's been fine. So I will go here because it's on the figure. I'll go to the matrix. Here you can see the model, okay, which is already run. Okay, so it's a very high correlation, 0.857, and these are the loadings. So here you can see the trouble. The loadings are not qualifying. Okay, meaning that it's 0.4. So for loading the criteria, it should be greater than 0.7. I mean 0.7 above. Okay, but I'll give you a very good model. I'm just this for beginner, those suppose don't have a data, install the version and just want to play around. So you can do it here. So these are different sets available. You can see here, if I can click on, is a different increasing. This is about quality. I think this is about quality. Okay. So let's say if I run this model, calculate, use algorithms. For those who are more interested, so then when we officially starting different analysis level, then I will start from the data, the whole. So I think here you can see here still those issues. So they're just teaching the students how is it when your loadings are lower than 0.7. Now I will come to the data part, but this is the interface you need to know. This is the interface where you can have a file menu here. Okay, you can import, export your file. You can import a whole project. If the project already saved somewhere, you can pick it from here. Okay, you can import the data. Okay, file, you can export the whole model into a different package, which is package in R if you are using a different. So these are different, but the main thing here, the way you have to run the analysis here, you can create a new project if you want to start. Okay, create a new path model. You can duplicate you know, can if you want to test, sometime let's say a student run the analysis and he liked the model, everything is okay, but he still want to change. So then you can duplicate the model. You can work in that, and the original model will be the same. Before we go to the analysis, I just want to briefly tell you, when we want to run SIM, structural equation modeling, okay, apart from the software, you should know the theory first. So we have two kind of analysis, the measurement model and the structural model. Okay, it's same both in MOs. It's work the same in Lisrel. Okay, it's work the same in ImPlus. These are all competitive software which work for the same. So majority of the PhD student will use what do you call it, SIM, which is apparently a contemporarily a better version of regression. Okay, regression is a first generation technique. okay, which is used for correlation and regression analysis. But SIM is advanced in terms of multi-level analysis, in terms of mediation, moderation, and if you want to see the relationship between your constructs and indicators. So for that, we must use SmartPLS, okay, our MOs for that matter. So the first thing you need to know, we have two types of model, okay. Let's say I will start up one of my current paper which I'm doing, okay. So I will go here, sustainability. Okay, so this is one of my this is the data which we already, you can see this is the data, okay. So this model consists of multiple variables, okay. So if you remember one thing, as I mentioned, the file must be in CSV format, otherwise you can't see this data, it will come blank or error. The second thing is that you need to make sure there's no missing value in the data, because in some file, if there is, let's say, one column is, let's say, 100, another is, let's say, 85 or something, so it will not able to sync the file because there are missing values. So make sure before you put the data, there is no missing values, plus the data is clean, mean all the rows and column they're okay. So here you can see the mean value automatically is calculate for you, the mean, medium, minimum, maximum, these things, and also it calculate for you the normality, the kurtosis and skewness value, okay, that should be between ±3, okay, and the standard deviation. But this is not very important for you because this is very basic and you can done it later on SPSS as well. Here, let's say I will click the data on the model, okay. Now this is a model which I sketch on this data, okay. I can redraw for you, no problem. So because this is already made model, but I think I will redraw for you. Let's say, let me duplicate the product so I can do for the practice part. So now if I do anything with this, my original model will be done. Okay, so this is one of the, let's say, make it, remove it. So then I can redraw. Okay, so suppose this is the model. Okay, this is my data. As I mentioned, if the data has a missing value or something, this will not come here. If you put it here on the first, it's called indicator. Okay, so this will show you the data. If my data has any missing value, then student normally trouble to see their how to pick the items from here. So these are your study items. Okay, this model consists of 5 different variable environmental management system. Okay, so first what I will do here, I have to go to this options. Okay, I click here, one single click, I have to pick different variables. Okay, so total I have 5 variables. Then remember, you have to move to the cursor here, otherwise if you play around it will not work. So you have to go here, select, and I will just space it around. So this is a we call it a serial mediation. If you have more than one mediator, this is called a serial. So this model based on serial mediation model. Okay, I will quickly rename my construct. So this is called EMS, environmental management systems. This is called green HRM practices. This is called pro-environmental organization climate. This is called pro-environmental behavior, OCBE. And this is my exogenous triple bottom line, or sustainable performance. Okay, now I have all these constructs very quickly. So now I'm starting with the measurement model. So first I'll drop my indicator one by one. It's already available here. You have to put the shapes, and then you break down. This is all EMS. Sorry. I will just leave it here. It will drag on this, okay? And then the pro-environmental. This is by the OCB. This is by Green HRM Practices. And the last one is Sustainability Performance, or sometimes called TBL. Okay. Now here, basically, since it's very messy, but I can change it so you can talk to right. Okay, I'll put it to up, not top. You can put it down, put it down. Okay, so here you can also a bit shuffle it, and also you can get more space. Okay. So somehow it's now more manageable. Okay, remember running the structural equation modeling measurement model, you cannot hide the indicator because we want to see the loadings. Okay, it should be about 0.7. There are 3 criteria to justify your measurement model. The first one, the loading should be greater than 0.5. Okay, the composite reliability should be greater than 0.7, and the AVE, average variance extraction, that should be greater than 0.5. Now remember one thing, some people, when you are adopting your questionnaire, you're confusing ALPA with the CR. ALPA is the normal reliability we test through SPSS. So anybody who work on regression or normal models, they will report the validity of what you call reliability value of ALPA that should be greater than 0.7. But those who run SIM, you can see composite reliability. That's the same thing, but definitely it's a more advanced version of the reliability. So we call composite reliability because that's accumulated and we get a modified because of loading. After loading, you get a composite reliability. So this is the model. Now I will try to connect. So remember one thing, if you're a beginner or using, these all are red here. So if, let's say, if there is one arrow left in the model, it will be still red. So I'm now connecting my IV, or you can say exogenous, to the mediator. Here I'm bringing to another mediator. You see it will become green only if you connect at least the basic connection. Now at least I connected one arrow to the DV. Okay, I will complete my model. Okay, but let's say keep it simple for you because I think will be too much relationships. Okay, so I'll keep it like this. So now I have a model where I'm trying to run the serial mediation. Now, so what is serial mediation? This is a normal mediation. Green HRM mediate relationship between EMS and this, but this is a serial mediation starting from here, coming here, and then going here. It's more than one mediation. So these two mediate the relation. This is called serial mediation. I think I'll come to that later. So this is your measurement model is complete. Remember, if you want to run the measurement model, you have to apply the first calculate PS algorithm. This is run the measurement model. Okay, if you come to bootstrapping, that will run the structural one. Okay, the hypothesis model. So I will come to PLS algorithm and I will simply run. Okay, as I mentioned, it's on 300 editations. Okay, 7, and then so factor. The rest you can keep by default at this stage, and I will calculate. Okay, depending upon your machine or your package, normally the laptops which are like not very good, that will take some time. Okay, Now you can see here, this is are very important. When I come to this part, I hope you can see my screen, where to make it a bit more bigger. Okay, I think cannot stretch it a bit more, but I hope you can see this down value. Okay, this is very important. So this is my path coefficient, R square, F square, all the values are here. But what I'm interested to measure my to do my measurement model, okay, I'm interested here in construct reliability and validity. Okay, this is the first criteria for the measurement model. So I will just click here. When I click here, you can see the alpha value, which I mentioned, which is normal value, but we talk about composite reliability value. Okay, I'll just make it. If you are using the old, old school of thought, so you can say this is, we have alpha value and this is rho. This is another, when you go to species, you can change the, but these are all same, alpha, rho, but we are in sim, we are taking these values. So you can see for all my items, I'm all good, only trouble with the pro environmental climate. So I need to go to the model here. I need to go to my model and check this variable. Now you can see here that the loading here somehow, let me just zoom it. So you can see here the loading of this 1, 2 variable is less than 0.7. Okay. In other variable also have low, but I have more item, it doesn't show, it's a hidden. So you make sure you do check your, like here, it's only giving me problem here. This is low and this red, because the AV value is the accumulated value of the CR. So lesser the item loading, lesser will be this value. So I want to go back. So in other item also I have a slight, I have to delete, but that was visible. That's why I see it. So here I'll go step by step. Okay. If I remove one item, again, I have to run, because if I delete this item from here, the software will ask me to run again. So what I do, a normal trick, I will just keep this separate so I can know what are the low loading. Okay, these two I separated from the main. Here I have this, so I will keep it up. Any other, if you can see, loading less than 0.5, 0.7. Here, all okay. Okay, here I have these two. Here I have multiple. So what I will do, I will separate it up. Okay. Yeah, this so. So here you can, okay, this one down. Okay, these are all are low. Here I will see, yes, I have some. So I will keep it up. Yeah, only one, I guess. Okay, it's just for the testing purpose, not very big deal. Okay, I think only one. So now you see here, if I delete this one, I cannot see the loading. That's why I separated so I can see which are less or more. So I will go one by one, delete. Now you see it's hidden, so I cannot see which was low. So that's why I separated. So sorry, I just need to delete. Okay, done. So we all good. So I'll go back. If you want not look a bit messy, you can realign it. Just realign it to the right. So we'll just size up again. Okay, so now if you want to make it a bit visible so you can see all the items here, I will just go now, calculate PS algorithm, keeping the same indicators here, and then you run. Now you can see here, I will go to construct reliability and validity. Why? All these other also important, but at this stage to check measurement model, I just want to go here. So now you can see all my values are clear. Okay, there is no issue. This should be about 0.5. This should be 0.7 and all should, but this one we don't check in. I mean, this for us, the composite reliability is important. If you want to see all your loading in one go, I'll just go here. Now here is a trick. You see in that model, I still missed one was low, but I didn't see it in the visual effect. So I can see it here, OCB5 is less than. Now I'm removing it because it's a criteria. Although my loadings are fine, everything is fine. But so a lot of PhD students will just look in that one arrow and then let the examiner will check, oh, this factor is low, why didn't remove it? Okay, so you can see here there are multiple visual points where you can assess. You start from indicator, separating it, then you see in this output. So I miss it there. So OCB5, and you remember this data I play every time. This is the paper we are writing now, but still I miss it there. So that's why I say you always, being a researcher, you have to. So it's point number 4, OCB4. I need to see. Yeah, you see here, OCB4 is less than 0.7. So I will just remove it. Okay, I'll resize it. Okay, now I will go again, calculate PS algorithm. Okay, now I can see here everything all good. I'll go to the loading here. Now I can see there is no issue. Okay. Oh, still there is issue. OCB13, you see here. So I will go and remove OCB13. Okay, calculate. So now I will go here and I cross verify, there is nothing. So all done, all green mean all are fine. Okay. My purpose now to justify your measurement model. So remember, for measurement model justification, we have two things: conversion validity and discriminant validity. Conversion validity, I will see from here. I'll make sure all my loadings, the one I check already here, is greater than 0.7. Then I will see my composite reliability, that should be greater than 0.7. And last, which I will see my average variance extraction should be greater than 0.5. So all criteria done. Now I will go to discriminant validity. So here you can see your model, which was here. Okay. Within the values, you can still see the basic parameter, how things working. You see here, these are the variants that are explaining. Okay, at this stage, so we're not interested here. So we're not looking into these, criteria. I will go to my discriminant validity here. Another important thing, if you want to see your path, your what do you call? Because there are lots of people who will maybe miss the numbers. Okay, so if you're a visual person in terms of some people will read the graphs very clearly, quickly, right? So sometimes, let's say you're not wearing your glasses, you can't see the small values or something. So here you can see the graphs. All green mean all okay. You can see here the composite reliability. But those who are not reading the numbers, you can see here all the composite reliability graph is greater than 0.7. Okay. You can also see here the row graph. Okay. You can also see the alpha graph here. So all graphs are greater than 0.7, mean all these values are greater than 0.7 acceptable. So here, these are the visual description. If you're not reading the numbers, okay, you can quickly also scan here. So these are the different values. So now I will go to discriminant validity. What is discriminant validity? Here we talk about the diagonal value. Okay, the diagonal. Now, when you use IMOs, we only use Cornell lacquer criteria. We are not using the other. But SmartPL is more sophisticated. It gives you 3 other criteria to justify your discriminant validity. Okay, now discriminant validity, how we say it. Let me just go to the figure so I can see you. What does it mean by, the basic assumption of discriminant validity? Let's say this is the EMS as a construct. Okay, in my model, I will get issue of discriminant validity. Let's say if item 1 representing the same thing, which is OCB1. Okay, if this loading, I mean, if this item should represent EMS, not OCBE or OCBI. Okay, now what I believe, meaning that this item loading should be distinct from this one. Okay, so somehow some student do what they, I'm not saying everybody's cheating, but some student, let's say, they will try to manage the data, which data managing is fine until you are playing within the rules. Then there will be issue, this discriminant validity issue, because one item suppose is loading high here, they will bring it here. Okay, but then I bet you here is somehow still easy because we have different criteria. So if one of the value is issue here, still we can justify. But in MOs, it's very strict. If your discriminant validity is have trouble, the whole data is, meaning that because you cannot forward, if you cannot justify the measurement model, you cannot go to the hypothesis model. So for measurement model, the two criteria is essential, conversion and discriminant validity. So meaning that it is very important. So what is discriminant, I mentioned to you in the model, it should be distinct from each other. So we look into the diagonal values. Now this is my diagonal values here. If you read here, 0.751, the diagonal value, remember, this diagonal value should be high than the below and the range, but here is no value, so we don't wear. So 0.751 should be higher than what is below and what is alongside. Similarly, you see this value 0.65, it is greater than. So diagonal value is basically the square root of your correlation. Okay, it is a square root of your correlation. So meaning that it should be greater than your correlation. If it is less than your correlation, it will appear red here. Okay, so this is the first criteria to check all the diagonal values are greater than the below values. The second criteria is about the cross loading. What does the cross loading says? The cross loading says that any items in your data should load high on their respective construct, not others. So if you see here, EMS 1 is loading higher on EMS while it's loading low on green, OCB, and others. Okay, so this is the criteria for the cross loading, meaning that if you have an issue with the cross loading, that again the same issue will reflect, meaning that if EMS1 have a discriminant issue, it will not load higher here, maybe load high here but also high here. So that's a discriminant. So this is the second criteria we call the cross loadings. The third one is, we call it the heterogeneity ratio, HTMT. Okay, it shouldn't be red. Now you can see here TBL on this, I mean, with EMS is a bit on the higher point, but it's still not red. It's not still greater than 0.9. So it's just on the bar, it's show black, but I mean, it's still acceptable, but the rest are quite fair. I mean, so it's the same discriminant type, but they in a different orientation. I think at this stage that's fair enough. So this is HTMT, okay? These three criterias, and these are the graphs, okay? You can see here the TBL is like showing red here, although over there, because when you, if you can see here, if you round it up, it can go to 9, because the roundup rule is the value before the rounding of value is greater than 5. So if you remove it, it can ultimately go to 9. But anyway, just a small technicality here. So this is your discriminant validity. It's all okay. But remember, I'm running a very refined data. So if you are choosing your data for the first time, there will be lots of issues. Somehow it will take you hours to manage your discriminant conversion. It's not that easy. Okay, so but this is a refined data. I'm just showing the demo because if the data was raw, maybe they have a lot of confusion. So that's why I just want to do it on a refined data. So this is my discriminant validity is fine, my conversion. And if you need all these values, we simply here export Excel option. I will export and I will save it as a class test in the data bank or maybe on the desktop, and I will save. Now you can see I get all the data, so no need to save the separate folder. But if you are a beginner, I'll always want to take your screenshot, because sometimes when you come here, you get confused. There's lots of data here. So especially for the hypothesis part, for the direct and indirect effect, I'll take snapshot, because there is a mean value, which is a sample mean value, the original value. Sometime a beginner confused which value I should choose, although both are the same. So this is my path coefficients here. You can see here. Okay, this is your, but here you see here, this is a measurement model report, but it's also picked the structural effects. Sometimes you confuse here. So remember one thing, you have to only choose from the measurement model only the conversion and discriminant validity. Now outer loading, this is just the loading part. If sometime when you want to put all your, I'll show you in my paper, because when you want to make a measurement model, you will take loading with yourself, with your composite reliability and the AV in the same table. So that's why here you can see which items you can copy paste together separately. So here you can see my all output, your all output. Okay, but sometimes it's too much, so I can go back to navigation and can see what I wanted. Okay, so here you can see here what I wanted here. I just wanted here discriminant and conversion validity. So I will just click here show. So it can take me right away to the conversion and discriminant validity rather than, playing here and there. This is my construct conversion validity. So remember here, when we want to report our findings, we don't report these things. Okay, we just composite reliability AV, and here I'll put those loading and copy paste here one by one. I'll show you the table later. This is my discriminant validity. Okay, remember one thing, sometimes students get trouble when they want, because I'm not a formatting person, but I just want to show you. So this is somehow get messy when you want to, so I'll just open a new file here. Okay, I will open a new file. So being a beginner, because this is what we learned through, being a beginner, what I will do if I'm a beginner, let's say if I copy paste it here, now I'm facing a trouble. Okay, even if I here do whatever the thing, I'll still. So what I do basically, I will do the layout here, change the layout. Okay, and now I will make it too small. I will make it, okay, if I click here, I can see the small arrow here. I will just bring it here. So it's a 1 minute job. Otherwise, it will go. And then again, if you're formatting for your thesis, for your paper, it becomes messy and messy. So this is the way to open a layout, make it very small until it reach, because some Excel sheet will go here and then you maybe pay those guys for extra formatting. So this is one way just to have a shortcut. Okay, so here I can put all my graphs. Okay, this is about difference. So I already explained to you. So this is the output where I just require these two things. I just require this one and this one. So I just make it a bit highlight here. The rest I don't need at this stage, remember. So that's why being a beginner, you need to be very careful which values you need. Sometimes, let's say you give all the values to your supervisor, and even the supervisor doesn't know because you're not in touch with him every time. So just be refined with your output, what is required at this stage. Okay, now I think I hope we all good. So I will close it. I will go back to the any question in the middle, please. I mean, if anybody got lost somewhere, please very quickly before we go to the structural model.
Dr. Ulan, I just want to reconfirm, right now you are doing the PLS algorithm is actually to check the validity and reliability, whereas later on when we actually go to the bootstrapping, it's actually to test the hypothesis, is it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I think the professor, it's not a very detailed scenario, but at least you will get familiar how it works, because when the professor, let's say, talk about measurement structure indicators, at least you have this picture in mind. Otherwise, I think starting in a proper way, because you saw this, I saw students attending 3-4 different workshops, still unable to run. Why? Because just looking at it is not good enough. So when you start yourself, buy the product or even install the student version, you will face a lot of issue. Even a lot of student doesn't go from the data uploading part. So it's look easy here. Okay, their hands-on practice, it's a bit challenging. So, okay, now it's the same model. Now again, some student will do the mistake here. They will go to remember, you have to go to the measurement model with this refine and construct. You cannot go back to the original, put all the items and go to the measurement model. Sorry, the structural model. So you make sure the validated, adjusted measurement model, you can go from the same model to the structural model. And how I'll make a structural model here, I will just hide the indicator. So that's a, otherwise if I run like this, still will be the so many values, and then the confusion is like which value you want to read. So I would recommend student to hide it. Why? Because now it's an indication we are going to measurement model, construct to construct, no more indicators. So I will have my indicator here. I will hide the indicator one by one.
Dr. Ula, can I ask a question before you move on?
Yes,
regarding
please.
about the proxy that you have actually removed just now, that is actually a proxy for all the questions in the report, is it?
Sorry.
Because just now you actually have removed certain of the proxy, the OCB 13 and what so, is because it's actually during the validity and the reliability test, they did not actually make a pass on that. So we actually destruct the proxy already. So in our discussion that time, we will actually take out all these variables, is it?
Yeah, I think, what's your good name?
Sorry, doctor.
Your voice is not very audible. What was, I mean, I got the question.
I'm Anis here, because just now when you show us that some
Okay.
of
Your name is Annie, right?
yeah.
Okay, Annie, the point is, okay, we just go step by step. I understood your question. Yes, before we go to the measurement model, okay, we don't call it proxies, right? Remember in Viva, if you say proxy, they will not understand. We call this items, okay? Your construct items, okay, one by one. And then why we remove it? Yes, we mentioned it's in the analysis chapter 4. There will be a table where you normally, I would advise students to put this one, the unadjusted model, that your supervisor can see, or the examiner, that which item are low. Remember one thing, I would not say it's cheating. It's a kind of behavior where somehow, let's say, a guy who is expert in your analysis, he will understand anyway if you cheated. He can understand from one single value where you played around. So I would recommend, if there is loading issue, please report. Okay, this was the issue, and you can still justify there are ways. But if a one single error has been caged by anyone, it can go till the end. So the first thing, that whatever you remove, okay, like as I mentioned earlier, when I run, there was still some low, but it was showing everything was fine. Okay, so the first thing, whenever you remove these items, yes, we call it two types of model, adjusted, unadjusted. So unadjusted, you have to show first, this was my full scale questionnaire, and the second is the adjusted one. But normally, definitely, when you want to publish a paper, they say keep just the refined one. Last time when your thesis into the library, they will keep you the refined one. But you have to show, so whatever you deleted, with the justification that any item lower than 0.7 should be removed. This is the criteria for justifying your measurement model. Okay, yes. So all the item what you remove, the better way you make a table, which one is removed from which item, you say item remove. So let's say from EMS, we just remove one for another. So yes, that should be a clear table there which can show. Otherwise, your supervisor or examiner will manually count, and somehow even they count wrong, and then they will ask, oh, it just, please recheck. So I think to make things simple, just make a table, which item you remove, just keep it there, in the discussion. Okay. So I think now I'm hiding the indicators, okay, because it's a sign up structural model, and it's easy for me to see my construct values rather than indicator. So yes, at some stage, somebody can ask you, can you please show me the indicator? I just want to see. Okay, so make sure your data is valid, so you shouldn't have any issue. I will switch as height. Remember one thing, sometime, this is a very critical point, okay, just remind it. Somehow, when you are running this model, sometime by mistake, we click here, switch to reflective to formative, would disturb the whole model. I will just come to that later. It's a very critical point here. There are two kind of construct, formative and reflective, okay? Normally, 90% students, we use social sciences, we use reflective. What is reflective? Reflective is an indicator when my arrows going out of the construct and the arrow shape direction is toward the item. What does it mean? It means reflective construct mean my construct basically is defined or explained by the items. Okay, meaning that if I remove any of the items, okay, it doesn't make any issue. Okay, it's still I can measure the construct. But remember, in a formative construct, if you remove one indicator, it creates trouble. Formative constructs mean what? Formative construct mean your indicator define your construct. In this case, your construct define indicator. So if I make it formative here, you can see here, the arrows will come towards the construct, meaning that now indicator in there. In most cases, let me show my internet is unstable. I hope you can hear me. Remember one, normally a formative construct we use when some construct, let's say sustainability performance. It cannot be complete if you remove either of the financial, social, environmental.
Your voice is not stable, Dr. Ullah.
Let me, I just want to see, okay. Should I read? Is it okay now?
You need to repeat again the formative one because your voice was losing just now.
Okay, now is it audible? Is it audible now? Let me change my connection.
Dr. Ullah? Dr. Ullah, we are losing you.
Is I still
Dr. Ullah, you need to repeat because we are losing you from the formative construct just now. So you need to repeat that from there.
Is it audible now?
Not really, not really. Try again.
Okay, is it audible? I think I need to reconnect because there's, I need to reconnect maybe. I need to reconnect. Is it audible now or not? I need to reconnect maybe.
Yeah, now much better, isn't it, guys?
Should I reconnect or okay? Because I think I
now okay, since sounds a bit okay now.
Okay, because I have two connections. I try both, but I'm not sure why is it okay.
Okay, now it's okay. Now you're all right.
Okay, I mean maybe okay. I'll share the screen again.
Yes, please.
Okay, I hope it's audible now. I just okay. So we were here on the construct part, as I was mentioned, sometime by mistake, when you are switching the construct, okay, you just click this option rather than hiding the construct. Sometimes student, it happens, okay. So from there, I just come to know is the difference between construct, reflective and formative, okay. Most of the social sciences, they use, I mean, most of us, we use reflective construct. Reflective construct mean your construct define your indicators, meaning that in another way around, your construct basically is not controlled by your indicator, rather than your construct is in control, okay. But when it comes to formative, then you give powers to your indicator to control your construct, to define your construct, okay. So we normally use formative reflective construct. Remember that one thing. I hope it's clear, Professor. Or still we have a distortion?
Yes, it's okay now.
Okay, so remember, students, we normally, yeah, in some cases we do use formative construct, like let's say sustainability performance. Now, sustainability performance is a formation of economic, social, environmental. So you just remember, if you remove the environmental elements, it's no more sustainable. So some construct, like suppose they are what do you call, formative in nature, but we still use reflective to ease of doing the analysis. Okay, so this was, I think, here about reflective and formative. I will switch all the indicators quickly, and then I will go for the structural part. Hi.
Hi, Doctor.
Yes.
Can I have one more question, please?
Yes, please.
Okay. Let's say my HTMP is high. Do you have any remedy for it?
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple remedies, but the basic issues stem from the discriminant part, as I mentioned earlier, meaning that some of your items, you go back to see your data, they are somehow similar. Some of the what do you call, some of the item colluding with each other, meaning that if I get a HTMP issue here, it's meaning that the TBL one, somehow there is a high what do you call, there are certain items which somehow colluding with both. So you have to cross verify while going back to your Excel sheet by checking the values exactly. Let me just very quickly, by this opportunity, I want to tell you just a bit issue when it comes to data management. How I want to see define, I'm not saying potentially to get a positive relationship, but how this interplay. Okay, there are two kinds of relationship we have, positive and negative. So how I will get positive between TBL and OCB. So remember, we have those questionnaire items which has values 1 to 5 based on the Likert scale. Okay, so there are certain time there are reverse questionnaires in your questionnaires. Okay, they have a little static issue on the top, but some student doesn't know to fill this as a when they want to feed the data, so their feed is a normal questionnaire. Okay, let's say I have a question, I have, let's say I have a questionnaire where I have one reverse coded question. So when you have a reverse coded question, you come to Excel sheet or SPSS, you have to code it reverse. Let's say I put 1, you have to take it to 5. 5 will go to 1, 1 will go to 5, 2 will go to 4, 4 will go to 2, and then 3 will stay neutral. So somehow there are certain reverse question in the questionnaire which you didn't read, you just put it as it is. So that convert the whole relationship into negative even. So if I get a positive relationship, I'll make sure most of my EMS indicators loading on 4.5, and the same other construct is also 4.5, then it will establish a positive relationship. If it is a negative relationship, then suppose if I want to establish EMS negative with OCB, and literature also say the same, my data is the same, I need to check my data. Is it the values, meaning that you're not supposed to change the value, I'm just showing you the key, how it works. So meaning that if EMS 1, OCB 5, it will establish a negative relationship. One high, another low. One high, another high is show the positive relationship. So this is how the statistical orientation of the basic values. So that's one of the remedy. You need to cross check, is there is any reverse coding or not. The second thing, you need to cross check, did you by mistake put some wrong value sometime? Let's say by putting 1 2 1 2, maybe I put 2 2, maybe I put 1 1. So that all score should be cross verified with the data cleaning stages. Okay, with the missing values, unusable questionnaire, and then we come. But the most of the discriminant validity stem from that one of the item is the same as in the other construct, and you need to find. You go to structural model. So I'll go to calculate. Okay, calculate. I will go to bootstrapping, right? Okay, normally it's on 500. Okay, the basic one. Okay, but I will go for the complete one. Okay, it takes a little time in some machines if it is slow, but I'll go for the complete one. Okay, and I will click calculate. Okay, here we go. Now I get all my, so here the important two, there is two most important components as I mentioned in the measurement model. Although other results also we mentioned it's important, but for hypothesis testing, two are more important, okay? Okay. Now another thing, sometime what the student do a mistake here, it's a small typo mistake, but sometimes that will differ because sometimes they just copy paste the values. So remember one thing here, when you click here, it will showing you an ascending descending position. So let's say one table I copy paste in ascending position where I have different relationship on the top, another on the descending. So make sure this, when you copy, make sure you just follow one, either descending or ascending, because let's say then it will be able to cross compare your hypotheses. So here, okay, I will go to the path coefficient first. This is my hypothesis testing, and this is called Derrick effects. Okay, now you will say how Derrick effect, there are in the model there are so many effects, but when we count 1 to 1, we call them a Derrick effect. Okay, like I'll go back to the model. If you see here, although green HRM practices is a mediator, but in the path model, we don't see that value now. We just one-to-one relationship. But this stage, at this stage, is a direct one. From EMS to green HR practice is a Derrick effect. From here to here, it's still a Derrick effect when you want to count one by one. We will go later to indirect effect. So remember one thing. When you go click on the path coefficient, it shows the Derrick effects. Here we will explain three values. Okay. We choose the original mean sample, okay, and we use the t statistic and we use the p value. Okay, these three variables. I remember one thing here, some students will choose this one, let's say sample mean. Make sure choose the one which show in the model. It's a bit critical point, students, you need to get attention here. If I go to my model, I see the value here. I need to change the orientation so you can be clearly. Here in this part, you can change your values, what you are required. So initially we required a path value, t value, and p value, significance level, right? So here I will change these just to show here. I will choose p path coefficient with the p values here. If I click this, now in this model, I can see, let me just make it a bit bigger. Okay, now in this model, you see here by this option, normally I recommend student to give two model. One, p value, path coefficient value, that is called the beta value with the significance level. So you can see all written here, okay? I will not recommend student either in the paper or thesis to just make the table. Even if their data is clean, they don't give this model. It's very suspicious, okay? So make sure you represent the data in the best possible way. So p value, with the coefficients, with the significance, you can see, and here I will give this another model p with the t values. So it's already self-explanatory even if you don't make the table. So as I mentioned to you earlier, make sure you choose the model. If I copy paste this model, okay, it's written here 0.6222, okay? Now this is the original sample mean value here, okay? So sometime the student will not by mistake, but he will in the table, he will choose this one. Okay, he will delete this one. But in the model, we have this one. Both are correct. There is no issue. One is a sample, one is original. But do not, because that confuses the examiner, because your table values are not aligned with your figure values. So I would recommend you to keep the original sample mean value, which is sync with these values. Okay. Here how we explain, as I mentioned to you earlier. Okay, the t value. Okay, the t value, the p value, and the path coefficient. Okay, the t value should be greater than 1.96. It's just the basic parameters for the regressions. We use it here as well. The t value will be greater than 1.96. I mean, greater the better. So the more you can see here, the I think I'll explain it here with more clarity because I can make it bigger. Now here you can see the orientation. Here my beta value is 0.622. This is the same correlation value, meaning that, okay, so the correlation value is start from 0.1 to 0.9. Absolute is 1, which never come. Okay, with itself it's 1. When we see that classic correlation table, you'll see 1, 1, 1. Okay, and then we see the, so 0.62 is the correlation coefficient. Okay, and the t is 14. Remember, greater the beta value, greater will be the t value. It's a normal orientation. Okay, so those who just play with the data, let's say if I'm a beginner and I change this value, suppose, but I forgot to change the t value or whatsoever, so this is not a good practices to do, right? So make sure, as I mentioned earlier, the data is all connected. Okay, you can't change all the values together. So if you change one value, also we can gather from the significance value as well. Smaller this value, greater will be the insignificance taking it to. So like, let's say if I change here, since all my model data is very good, but still you can see the difference here. It's 0.6222, all triple zeros, right? Here you can see it's a smaller value, the p value jumped to 0.020. So all these things are interconnected, but make sure. So the p value should be less than 0.05, up to 0.05 we can't, but less than up to 0.05, okay? Not 0.5, remember one thing, it's not 0.005, that's a very minimal level, 0.05, okay, 95%. Okay, we have a 10% also, 90% also, but normally we use rule of thumb, the 95% criteria. So the p value should be less than 0.05, okay, up to 0.05, t value 1.96, and the beta is start from 0.1, it goes up to 0.9, but higher is a 0.9. Anything 0.1 up is okay until your p value is significant. So this is my direct hypothesis I mentioned. Although in the model it's look like a mediation, but I will count one by one first. Okay, so these are all my results. Okay, I can still copy paste the same way in the export to the Excel sheet. Now I will come to the indirect effect. Okay, the mediating part here. So there are okay, so I have to come specific indirect effect. If I click on this, you will see here the mediation part. Now you see here, this is the normal mediation, EMS to pro-environmental climate, and then OCB, okay? The one I'm interested here in the serial mediation, which start from EMS. So I have two serial mediation in this data. The same value we explained here, remember, we explained the original sample mean, okay? This value here show the indirect value. Remember, it's not no more that beta value. It's still the beta value, but it's an indirect path. Okay, so these are all my indirect path I will mention. Okay, I will mention the t value and I will mention the p value. Later on, I also calculate the WAPE to see either my mediation is full or partial. Okay, I will calculate the WAPE. Okay, the WAPE has a formula. But here we can see these are the, now what was the result? Now this is a trick here, that indirect effect I cannot see here. These are all the direct effects. Okay, so how to calculate one? I'll calculate one for you. Okay, anyone you want, you can calculate. here, if you can see here, let's say I'll calculate this effect for you. So remember, as I mentioned, even if it is not in the model, still people can calculate for you. So you need to be very careful. So now I'll calculate this effect for you, which is almost 0.209, okay, whatever, okay. This is from EMS to green HR, from green HR to OCB. This is my direct path, okay. This is my indirect path. So you have to multiply 0.622 with 0.336. This will give you an indirect path, which you can see here. Either it should be here, but as I mentioned, 2 mean here, so better you follow the one which is in the model visible one. So we follow this one because you see here. So can you calculate? So it's coming around, yeah, 0.208, which will round up to 0.209. Okay, so class, remember these all values can be class cross-check. So you can see here 0.209. So that was my indirect effect. To see if it is partial, there are 2 ways. In EMOS, we were supposed to see that the previous classic value that we want to define by Baron and Kinney, the classic example, that is if this mediation is partial or full, he would try to say if the direct effect becomes 0, it's a full, but it never becomes 0, so it's normally stay partial. But the new formula which is calculated by, that is called wave. Okay, so what we do there in the wave, we calculate the wave by dividing the, what do you call, we first we make the total effect. So we will add the indirect effect and the direct effect, that will give us a total effect. And then we will divide indirect effect by the total effect. Okay, then we get there's a formula. I think I'll drop it in the query. So we need to calculate the wave variance inflation factor. I think I just forgot the abbreviation, but it's called wave. Okay, so what does it mean? If it is 80% plus, it's called full. If it is 80% below, okay, up to 20%, we call partial. Okay, if it is less than 20, we call no mediation. Okay, so this is a 3 criteria you need to justify, but that's a secondary to that. First, you need to establish your hypothesis. Is it there is a mediation or not? If mediation, that's all good. Now later on, you have to see it's partial, full. So these were I think the basics when it comes to structural equation modeling in terms of you can calculate the moderator also. Let's say I'll just put one. So let's say I have, let's say I'm using I think it's okay. Let's just check. Okay, now I'm using suppose green HRM practices as a moderator, okay, on this relationship, because in SIM it cannot come on the top, so you have to keep it stay like IV, okay. Okay, here you can see here when you click on the top of the variable on which you want to calculate, so you can see add a moderating effect. Okay, if I add a moderating effect here, so remember you should know your IV and DV. So here dependent variable is TPL or sustainable performance. I want to add my moderator. Which one you want? Because all are in the orientation. So I want to add green HRM practice as a moderator. Okay, EMS is IV. Okay, here you can see here because I think you cannot see until I close this. Okay, so you can see here I take IV EMS as an IV. This is my mediator. But what the professor showed in the model, this arrow should come here, but in SmartPL we cannot write on the top. So we, and by nature, by the way, based on the literature, moderator is an IV by nature. So that's why we keep it this orientation. Here are two terms. We call the product term, product indicator, both are the same. Okay, product indicator mean if I choose product indicator, it will multiply each together. I'll show you when I open the because I just hide the indicator yet. And it's a two-stage. Okay, so both are the same. There is no big issue. But the orientation is, let's say we just go with two-stage. Okay, I will click OK. Now you see my moderator is created here. Okay, this is my moderator, which is, you can just name it moderating effect. Okay. So you can see here now, I will go to calculate. Remember, it's not going to go back to the, what you call the measurement model. I'll calculate bootstrapping. I'll keep it the same. Okay. You can see here, since the data is suited for mediation, right? I just changed for you to see, you know. So you can see here now, I can see my so you can see here the moderating effect of green HR and PBL is insignificant. Okay, the P value is greater than 0.05. The T value is also, you can see, less than 1.96. Okay, and it's completely negative, meaning that it's not moderating. Okay, so remember one thing. What is basically how the moderator explained? What we do that basically, when you see the values here, suppose the dynamic effect of the green HR on the TBL is positive and it's 0.25, which is all good. If I use a moderator and it's moderating, it will increase, it will strengthen or weaken. So now in this case, as I said, there is no moderation. I mean, the positive moderation is that the negative is there. It's weakened the relationship, or even it inverts the relationship to negative. Now this relationship is negative 0.05 and it's insignificant. So in one sense, you can say there is that kind of moderation there, but normally when we do moderation, we look for the positive to strengthen the relationship, meaning that we have this, what you call, classical example of this smoking to lungs cancer, right? And then say how medication can moderate. So definitely if I am a smoker and I go for counseling or medication, I should stop smoking or I should minimize smoking, not increase smoking. Okay, so meaning that the moderation always in the analysis, we try to get that positive effect. Okay, so this was about the moderator. There is one quick another, I will go back to the, there's one quick I want to run for analysis for you. This is called important factor INF. Okay, we run it on the, what you call, importance performance map analysis. Okay, what we do, we try to see the significance of the variable of all IVs and DV are all, you know. So here I will collect my TPL, okay, and I will calculate. So here I can see the variability or how much my IVs or overall variables contribute in terms of variance to my DV, which is important. From here you can see the significance, what I mentioned about the parsimony of the model. So here you can see like how much they are in terms of, okay. So you can see here the percentage is 63%, okay, 62%, 53%. Okay, this is just idea how, because sometimes student will pick the variable which doesn't have impact, although it's true in terms of hypotheses, but doesn't have that impact. Okay, so how much you can show that in the graph as well. It's a graph. Okay, this is, so although there are significant other analysis, but since I think the time was short and the basic purpose was to show you the, how to sketch and how to run, we have, although there are blindfolding where we see the Q square and all, but that's a different level. This is when we do computation manually. Okay, there is also PCL predict, which is a new one they added to that. Okay, which predict the model for you. There are some permutations, but I mean that's a bit more advanced level that later on you want to learn more, or to configure more. But at this stage, I would believe it's sufficient for you to how to run your data, at least how to see what is the difference between measurement and structural model. So any quick questions?
There's one question in the chat box, Dr. Ula.
Let me check. Okay. Okay, what is the least sample for number? We can use model. Okay, it's a very important question. Okay, let me just take you back when the IMOS was a better software as compared to SmartPLS. Okay, back like another 3-4 years back, right? 2016 to 20. The rule of thumbs is by Hire et al. Okay, they say minimum per sim, the requirement is 200. Okay, if you want to run a structurally, I'm not talking about SmartPLS now, I'm talking about the sample in terms of if you are using sim. So structural equation modeling is the second generation technique. As I mentioned, regression is a first generation technique. So there is no sample issue. I mean, by rule of thumbs, 200 is optimal in terms of, I mean, greater is better because the more is better, the more will be the variance power in terms of that will be more better, because the more the minimum sample is, the minimum list will be the predictability of the model. So but when we run the bootstrapping, it run on the 5,000 plus iteration. But the sample size, when I was picking that value, remember I was choosing original mean, original sample mean my original data. So 200 is the routine rule of thumb based on the researchers. And how to choose that, definitely it should be based on a rigorous statistical formulas or any sort of rules by Morgan or Israel and all. So that is one of the requirement for the SmartPLS. but normally when essentially when IMOS was previously used, that was dealing with the bigger samples. That's why in the past we were not using SmartPLS. Why? Because it was designed for smaller samples, less than 100 up to 100. But now there is no issue with the sample. You can run 1,500 because SmartPLS realized later on that sampling is a sensitive issue for most of the researchers. And so previously we were not using SmartPLS because it was sensitive to sample. We cannot try bigger sample, but now the advanced version of 3.9 plus, it is there is no issue with the sampling.
Yeah, okay, Dr. Ula, for those studies who have a very small sample, like 30 or less, so we reckon that it's best to go back to use the SPSS, right?
Yeah, Professor, a very true question. So normally if you see the studies nowadays, like other day, I got a review paper from sustainability, and these students, they use a very classic one-way ANOVA, two-way ANOVA. The study was basically checking the lean and green approaches, how it works. So still there are papers coming which are based on, because you see a lot of good journal, one of the Journal of Secondary Data, Environmental Science and Pollution, is impact factor around 4.5, Q2 or Q1 journal. Still most of the economist data, they run regression. A very good studies, they still run regression. So class, one thing is very important. I think professor will share with you later, and also probably I'll share the material. is not necessarily you must use SIM. You need to understand this. You go back again to your model, okay, you need to make sure which technique you're using and why. It's all go back to your model and your IVs and DVs and your nature of the data, which data you're using. Is it continuous? Is it discrete? So normally the Likert scale data is continuous. That's why we opt to SIM. And another point I forgot, basically a lot of student doesn't know. Remember one thing, the classic difference between EMOS and SmartPL is so far, previously it was sample sensitive. We go for bigger sample with EMOS, but now there is no sampling issue. So the one issue why to choose SmartPL over EMOS, if your data, SmartPL is not sensitive to normality. If your data has normality issues, still it will run for you, but EMOS will not run the data if it has normality issues. It will give you an error. So normally that's why a lot of NN over the past 5-6 years, EMOS develop it rigorously. Now EMOS, SmartPLS is better even for the mediation moderation. It's more better even for the reflective constructive format. So SmartPLS is now taking a lead in terms of quadratic moderating, because in EMOS, if you want to calculate a moderating effect, you go back to the you go back to the species, you calculate manually, you get it back to the and another important issue about the discriminant validity. EMOS just give you one output, that is the lacquered one. So SmartPLS give you 3 other parallel comparison. Let's say some people will not go with the locker method, they will go with the cross loading. If they're cross loading, that's fine. So I think that's a classical division. I cannot see any other question in the chat box, but if any confusion apart from the analysis, anything you want to quickly ask, please, you can ask.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Ula. It was a very insightful, actually, although it is only just about 1.5 hours, but I think you have given the students a very great introductions about how to use this SmartPLS, and I hope students, and of course, within 1.5 hours, you will not be expert in using the statistical tools, but you need to familiarize it. So as a PhD or DBA student, investing on the of licensing to get a license for the SmartPLS or SPSS is worth it, actually. Yeah. So you can get familiar to the statistical tool. Thank you again, Dr. Nola. You can stay on, right, if you wish to.
For a while, and then I have to take my breakfast. Yeah.
Yes, I know that you can have your breakfast. Not to worry. Yeah. Okay.
Water.
Thank you very much. So we hope to see you again.
And I wish you all students good luck. And in the future, if there is any issues with the work, I think always welcome. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ula. All right. Okay. Have a good day to you. Right.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay. So if
Thank you,
anyone wants to go to the loo, if anyone wants to go to the loo, please have a quick one, right? So come back in about 1 or 2 minutes while I'm going to open the next slide.
Thanks, Doctor.
So we're going to go to the last part.
Thanks, Doctor.
Before I pass to Prof. Amir. Okay. So, okay. Everyone is still okay there? Excited?
Yes, Doctor, thank you.
Great. So I hope this session and the whole program of this research methodology since part 1, part 2, and part 3, right? So motivates you to complete your research, whether you are embarking on PhD or DBA, yeah? Okay, so I always excited when I do research on my own. That is something which I really miss, and I really put lots of efforts when I do research with my team. Yeah, and until today, I still have 1 or 2 research together with my team, and of course, Dr. Ula also in the team. Okay, so this last part, just to recap a bit more, all right, on the data analysis and interpretation. Okay, right. So data analysis, okay, when presenting your chapter 4, right, so there are 2 things that is actually involved in the chapter 4. One is the presentation of the results, how you present the data, right? Whether you want to import the tables that from your analysis of your SmartPLS or your SPSS into your text, your Word document in terms of tables, graph, or even narrative. Yeah. Okay. So that is talking about presenting the results. Okay. The other part in the chapter 4 is to discuss whereby you need to interpret and deliberate the findings from the analysis and try to make certain connections. Yeah, okay. But of course, it will not be as lengthy or detailed as in chapter 5. But what the examiner expects when he reads your chapter 4, right? When the examiner reads your chapter 4, you need to imply a little bit. I will show it later. You need to imply a little bit. What does it mean by the beta, the significant P, when the P is less than 0.05 or 0.000? What does it mean? Or even when the mean is 3.0 or 4.0, what does it mean, right? So you need to imply it immediately after you presented the data in the tables or in the graph forms in your chapter 4, okay? Right, so the 2, oops. Okay, so the interpretation of data actually involves the task of drawing inferences from collected data and analysis pertinent to the research. So go back to your research hypothesis or your research objective. Yeah, okay, basically in chapter 4, we shall go back to our hypothesis. And then based on the right statistical procedure tools to make the correct interpretation. This is very important, yeah? Just to give you a hint, okay, some examiners who are very good in statistical, they just want to test you, whether you are the one. Well, we know sometimes the students hired somebody to run the statistical analysis, but as a scholar, you need to understand what is the output all about, how to imply the statistical output. So this is where you normally being tested by your examiner if they ask you, okay, what does it mean when your mean say that is 3.0? Or what does it mean by the composite reliability is or cross-loading is 0.3 or less than 0.5? So that is actually testing your understanding on the statistical output. Yeah, okay. And the third part on the interpretation of data is to reflect the usefulness and utilizations of the findings. Okay, what do we mean by usefulness? Okay, and we just go to the basic one. Yeah, okay. If the instruments, okay, the mean and standard deviation say that the instrument, the mean is 4.0. So what does it mean? So it means majority of the respondents actually inclined to agree with the items or agree with the statements. So what does it imply then? Further implication of that. So therefore, let's say the items are measuring, one item measure about, I've been empowered by my leader. So that's talking about empowering is so important in the context of my job. Yeah. So that shows your understanding about each items that you have designed. Yeah, many students, okay, I would like to alert you guys. Yeah, okay, when you move on to chapter 5, right, or even still at the chapter 4, students always ignore the items that you have developed in your chapter 3. You remember when you developed your instrument, you have a lot of items. Okay, please don't call it proxy, yeah, Anis or others, okay, the items. You have lots of items, but you do not use it when you want to imply or discuss the findings. And some students are trying to find or to search something from the sky, whereas the answer is in your questionnaire design or in your protocol interview or in your observation findings. Yeah, okay. The answer is there, but why do you need to go and search from within the sky? It is all there. Yeah? So go back to the instrument that you have designed, because that will give you the hint or clue for you to imply the statistical output and later on to deliberate in your chapter 5. Yeah, okay. And the final part of the interpretation of data is to draw a meaningful conclusion based on the research questions and objectives. So this which will be discussed further by Prof. Amir in chapter 5 later. Okay. So things to be considered when interpreting the data, as I mentioned. Okay, one, you have to understand the statistical tools. Okay, make a point to learn the statistical tools. Okay, I'm not asking you to memorize the formula, because today you have all the software available: SmartPLS, Amos, SPSS, Lazario, and Vivo, and so forth. So your job as a scholar, as a researcher, to understand what are the appropriate tools and why you chose those tools. And later on, you must be able how to imply the outputs. Yeah, okay, how to interpret those outputs. Okay, so that goes to number 2. Interpret findings based on the purpose of the research. Relates the finding to the real life context. When we said the real life context, okay, Prof, we need to relate to other things. No, you need to relate back to the scope of the study in the context where you conduct your research. So don't go around the bush. Some students, they go around the bush. They try to generalize beyond then the scope of the study. So this is not right, yeah, because whatever research that you do is within the limitations or the scope of your field or your study. So go back, your boundary is just within your field of study, yeah, or the scope of the study. If let's say you are looking into the satisfactions among academics in Malaysia, you clearly say in Malaysia, so we presume that you have you have a sample representative all the universities in Malaysia, including the IPTS, then you can generalize. But suddenly when we read your thesis, the Malaysian context is within Kuala Lumpur. So you can't be generalizing that the whole academics in Malaysia are not satisfied with the work. So you need to, the real life context is just to relate within the scope of your study, yeah, within the boundary of your study. And the other part, use persuasive language to convince the readers. And I know this required skills in writing, good command of English, good command of vocabulary in the English language, yeah, for you be able to use. So if you have this handicap, please send for proofreading, yeah, send to someone who are expert and sit with them, sit with her or him, yeah, so that the meaning is still remain as what you wish to express in your writing, yeah. When I did my thesis, yeah, 30 years ago, yeah, I sat with my proofreader because she knows about the English, just basic English grammar or whatever, but she may not know, she did not know about the context or the content of the study. So I have to sit down with her, right, went through, and she has to ensure that the meaning is still there, yeah. So it helps actually for if you have a good English language teacher and sit with her when he tries or she tries to correct your writings, yeah. And the other part is to organize the findings and highlight the most important findings first. So in your chapter 4, right? So when you organize your findings, go back to the step that I've mentioned first. Okay, it has to start with your reporting the responses rate and then move on to your descriptive analysis, and then move on to presenting your measurement model, and then move on to presenting your structural model. Then the last part is to present your mediations or moderating analysis. Yeah. Okay. Within each of the segments, okay, highlights the important findings. Yeah. Okay. And then use simple and clear language. And you may also want to include in your limitation if you discover, for example, that Annie was saying just now, okay, what if suddenly when I run my mediation analysis and I discover there's insignificant mediation effect, right? Okay, so this should be highlighted later, or do not change your, suddenly you want to change your goalpost, yeah, I need to refine or realign my variables. Okay, don't do that. It's very unethical to do that. Yeah. Okay. So what you need to do, just explain later in your chapter 5 at part your limitation. There may be possible due to the instrument use. It was adopted from a foreign or Western instruments which you adopt or adapt it in the Malaysian or Chinese or Malay context, Malay business culture, and that could be some possible questions to answer why it is insignificant. Yeah, if you have discovered all, so long that you have ensured that the reliability of the instruments are high, but it is that it does not have a mediating effect. So not to worry, it could be due to the culture within the scope of the study. Okay. Right, so I just want to share with you quickly, because I know Dr. Ula has basically go through with you. This is how you're going to present it in your study, yeah, in your thesis. Okay, so if you look at this, okay, this is your demographic variables. Okay, and my suggestions, if you have your demographic variable, always go back to the section where you ask about your demographic data from your respondent. So whatever that you ask in your sections of demographic biography data in your questionnaire, right, please present it in your descriptive presentation, which is you can describe it as a profile, respondents of the profile, the profile of the profile respondents. Okay, in the section, the first part of your chapter 4. Okay, all right, so whatever age, male, gender, and of course you have to imply, don't just, I sense a few, not many, all right, a few students, okay, when it comes to presenting the table, they just put table, okay, the profile of the respondent as shown in table 1, that's all. So please, as a scholar, you got to mention, highlight something. Okay, majority of the respondents were male, okay, which composed about 74%, and they are married people, okay, and age between. So just highlight the significant one. And age, majority of them are actually between 26 to 40 and above, because you've seen, if you look at this data, it's quite representative. Those who are between 26 and 30, about 24%, 31 to 35, between 23%. That follows with age between 36 and 40 and above. So you can just conclude majority of the respondents are actually 26 and above, which comprises of 20 plus 20 plus 20 is about like 95% of the respondents. Okay, and residentials where the respondents reside, they are actually coming from the urban area, which compose of 73%, and the distance from the location is they are within the hometown of the their place. Okay, and the highest levels of education, majority obtain master's degree, which constitute to 72.4%. Okay, and of course, if they're the designation, so just tell that. Yeah, okay. So that's basically show your capability of presenting narratively your data. Okay. And then we're talking about the data screening, right? Okay, now, Okay, this is how do you, as what just now when Dr. Ula shows the smart PLS, okay, you need to understand the missing values, okay, and what you need to present, basically the skewness, the kurtosis, yeah, okay, and this would present the outliers. And if you using the smart PLS, okay, there is a check. There is a tick there. You can choose which statistical tools, and normally for outliers we use the clustering methods, the box plot, or the Mahalanobis distance. So these are actually the statistical tools within the SPSS or Smart PLS. And we can check the normality, because normality reflects the violations of the assumptions. Okay, so this will represent by the skewness of the data. Of course, it needs to work within plus +1 and not less than -1. So if you look at these, the skewness and the negative, the kurtosis, so they are quite okay actually. So it shows that the data are quite normal in the sense, yeah. Okay, if you choose the graphic presentation from the Smart PLS, you can actually see the bell curve. Yeah? Okay, the bell curve, whether it is normally distributed or it could be skewed to the left or skewed to the right. Yeah, so you can choose that. But what important, we need to see the descriptive statistics on the data. So the data, which is mean the construct, the variables. Yeah, so if you have 10 variables, so we want to see how the data actually contributes to each of the construct, whether it's normal or tendency to have certain skewedness there. Yeah. Okay. And then the other one is the common method variance. Okay, basically the common method variance is to see the dispersions of the items. Yeah, in measuring the construct or the variables, okay, whether the to what extent there is a spread of the items. Okay, for example, yeah, okay, construct 1 or variable 1, you have 20 items. So how dispersed is the items? And the rules here, you're using the Hammond single factor test in SPSS, and the single factor must be less than 50%. So if you look at here, yeah, right, okay, it is less than factor 1 is about 17.8%, or in the variance is about 36.5% or 4%. Goes with factor 2, factor 3, factor 4. So this is just an example to give you. So factor is actually reflecting the variable. And please, when you present the table, put a note there. What is factor 1? Factor 1, if let's say you said green human resources, and the abbreviation for that is GHRM. So please mention, put a note under the table. You just need to put once, and after that people will know. Yeah? And in fact, I'm sure in your thesis you will have the abbreviations list. Yeah, yeah. For the examiner to refer what is HRM, what is DVM, okay, what is PEO, so they can always refer to the glossary or the abbreviation list up front of your thesis. Yeah. So if you look at here, right, the test is, the variance is also less than 50%. So that shows that the variations or the dispersions of the items are good. Yeah, the total variance are explained by all those constituted items for each of the variables or construct. Okay. Right, and then the mean, standard, and correlation. So this is things you are quite clear with it. So this is actually import from the SPSS, or even you can import it from your Smart PLS. Yeah, you can see the mean, you can see the SD, the standard deviations, and what are the correlations among the variables. Yeah, okay. Right. The other one, the other part on the measurement model, the reliability and the validity. Okay, so this is what you are quite familiar now with all this figure. Okay, so by now I hope you know. So all the circles are actually presenting the variables. Okay? The square, the yellow color are presenting the items that constitutes to the variables, to make up the variables. For example, under human resource practices. So basically there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 items. And what are the reliability? So you can see these are the reliability of each items. And of course, if you click some more, you can see the reliability of, these are the loading, the reliability loading for each items. And then later on, if you click, I missed that, yeah, okay, you can have the reliability for the construct or the human resource. You can put that, yeah, so I missed that one. Okay, so just a quick one to share with you. Okay, if you look at this data, okay, most of the items reliability above 0.6 or 0.7, which is indicate quite good, yeah. If you use hair, okay, hair is actually preferred above 0.6, yeah, okay, and I can wait. There's one more. Actually, they preferred also above 0.5. So whichever items reliability less than 0.5, you need to remove and run or calculate again the reliability test. Yeah. Okay, so most cases today, I look at the students are using hair, right? So they use 0.6 and above. Okay, so no worry. As long as you indicate, okay, which reference are you use in order to choose to set the threshold. Okay, right. Then, okay, you present the convergent validity, which is actually derived from the SmartPLS. Yeah, when you import the data, the tables into your Word document. So this is how it looks like. Yeah, when Dr. Ullah mentioned just now. Okay, I need to remind you again. Okay, there are few students. I do not know somehow what happened. By right, if you direct import from the SmartPLS into your document, or another way around, you export from SmartPLS towards your Word document, it should not change the sequence of this labeling. Yeah, it should start from construct and then indicators, factor loadings, Cromwell alpha, row, composite reliability, and AVE. But there one time I discovered the sequence runs. So I'm not sure whether students are retyping the data, because if you are exporting it direct from the SmartPLS, it will not run the sequence. The sequence is always be like this. It started from the construct and end up with the AVE. Yeah, okay. So if you use the SmartPLS, so you can know that the composite reliability is 0.918. And then these are the factor loadings, the reliability for each of the items that constituted towards the HRM practices, that make up the HRM practices. Yeah. If I go back to the last slide, okay, the previous one, so you see this, yeah, 0.82, 0.67, and so forth. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So this is the one. So we can see that the reliability is high. Yeah, you can, and also if you look at the AVE is 0.5 above 0.5, so that indicates the respective items is actually being able to present to contribute to the human resource or whatever variables that you are studying. Yeah, so in this case, 58%, okay, it shows that the variance can be explained to the variance in the HRP is explained by the items. Yeah, similarly goes to WL, work this is work-life balance practices, present about 60% of the variance, the organization reputations about 69%, 63%, and so forth. So when it comes to writing, you need to tell, okay, what does it mean by 0.583? So you don't write. Some students will write, okay, the AVE is 0.583 for HRMP. Of course we know, because when we look at your table, of course we know. But what does it mean? It means, or it implies, 58% of the variance in the human resource practices is able to be explained by the indicators. Yeah, which if you are good at it, you can write the indicators, which are what is HRM1, HRM2, HRM3, and so just give a snapshot about those indicators. Yeah. So this is over 25 of examine the student. I think I can count how many students I actually can present very well in chapter 4. And I always told the students, right, please imply a little bit. And some students are very firm enough to say, well, I will explain that in chapter 5. When we go to chapter 5, hardly nothing to be explained. No, chapter 5 is the different thing. Chapter 5, we do not want you to tell us again about this 0.5 or 58% or R squared or Q squared. Okay, we don't want to know that. What chapter 5 will do is about the deliberations of the findings, but the discussion of the findings should fall in chapter 4, which you imply the findings, the narrative implications of the findings. So that is different between chapter 4 and chapter 5, okay. Right, okay, this is what Dr. Ula said just now about the discriminant analysis. So if you look at this, the diagonals value has to be higher than the values we did below them, okay. So if the diagonal values are higher than those values below, so that shows that the constructs, there's no discriminant among the constructs, okay. And of course, you can use also HTMT. So HTMT, it has to be within close to 1 and less than 0.9, okay. So that's something I think you are quite familiar that just now, you remember that, okay. Okay, and the multicollinearity is another one. So that's looking into, is actually between the construct is excess. Okay, when we want to test the multicollinearity, is actually we using the VIF, the variance inflection whether is there any collinearity arises between the construct, between variable 1 to variable 2, variable 3, variable 4, and so forth, okay. So if you look at this, okay, so these are all the VIF values, okay, of those endogenous constructs, okay, and the exogenous construct are basically, okay, I'm not sure how many of you understand the word endogenous and exogenous. Okay, exogenous normally will refer to the independent variables. Okay, and the endogenous normally, okay, if you have a mediating variables, okay, the one in the middle, the mediating variable, it can be your dependent variable. And when it comes to the second order of the model, which is from the intervening to the mediate to the dependent, so your intervening will become independent and your dependent is still remain as dependent. So you need to understand the first order and the second order of the analysis when you have a serial of mediation, or even you have a single mediating variables there, okay. Right, in terms of Q2, how are you going to present it? Okay, so normally we use the Stone geysers, which is Q squared, okay. And a model is said to have good predictive when it is greater than 0. So you just need to look into the last part, 0.25. Okay, so what does it mean here? Okay, when it is greater than 0, so therefore the model, okay, is able to predict, for example, that you have a several IV just now, one dependent variables. So the whole models are considering fit, and the independents are considering the right choice of independent variables to affect the intervening and the dependent variables in your study. Yeah. Okay, so when it comes to hypothesis testing, of course, we have to use the bootstrapping analysis, which is then you have to choose the path coefficients and the p-values, okay? And you need to understand what does it mean by 0. For example, like in this case, yeah, 0.174 and 5.3. So basically, these are the t-values and these are the p-values, okay? Right? And then, so you need to understand all those need. Then you can present the whole, you export this diagram into your text, and then it has to follow with the next one, this one. Okay, the summary of the path coefficients results. Okay, right. So you saw the previous diagram is stated the t statistics, but in these tables, okay, is stated what is the p-values. You can actually choose to have the path coefficients with the p-values or path coefficients with t statistic, because they can't have 3 together actually, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Okay. So you got to have 2 tables if you are going to test all the hypotheses that you're going to test. Yeah. And it will give you indicator whether it is supported or not supported. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. The next one. This is how you should write. Okay. Right. I'm just sharing with you. For example, in this case, okay, it says that the beta value is 3.92. The p value is significant. Okay, based on the result. Okay. Therefore, the hypothesis was supported. Okay. Right. So do not just stop there. You see, for this student, she continued to write another little bit more narrative there. Right. Okay, to be alert is certain. Fiza, what time do I have to finish? Can I use by 11:45? Just a little bit more. The result was consistent with past study, and he mentioned all these references, which I presume she has discussed it in chapter 2. Okay, now come again. Don't overlook on this one. Right? Okay, sometimes like me, for example, when it comes to chapter 4 or chapter 4, you cite somebody. It's consistent with the past study, Ahmed et al. 2019. So I tend to go to chapter 2 and I search for Ahmed et al. 2029, whether you have mentioned somewhere or not in chapter 2. And many students overlook this kind of issues. Yeah, what they have written in chapter 2, they kind of ignore when it comes to chapter 4 and chapter 5. Yeah. Okay. And the findings showed that human capital was shown as a consistent predictor, 183 of business performance across, because the sample is about 183 business performance. So that's consistent to what wherever that he want to cite it. And she further affirmed the statement by stating like this: a positive association between human capital and firm performance was also shown in prior studies. Okay? The finding also demonstrated that human capital capacity and ability have a major impact on firm performance, as human capital is one of the firms. Okay, students would ask me, okay, Prof, shouldn't this should be written in chapter 5? My answer, there's nothing wrong for you need to put it in chapter 4 a little bit. A little narrative there in your chapter 4. That shows your credibility of interpreting the data. But over here, you see, she did not further discuss in detail what does it mean by the positive association, which she's going to leave it in chapter 5. You see? So the difference here is just implying the data that is a positive association, and it's also quite consistent with some references and a little bit narrative saying that the growing human capital is a very crucial issue, but she did not deliberate it in depth, which she's going to do it in chapter 5. Yeah. Okay. So another examples, okay, for the hypothesis, yeah, there is a positive relationship between structural capital and firm performance. Yet another example. So she presented the results, okay, the beta value, the t value, and the p value. Okay, so based on this result, it was not supported, isn't it? Because the p value is greater than 0.005. Yeah, okay. And she further affirmed the findings with a little bit implication here, right? Therefore, this finding was consistent with past studies saying that blah, 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 it is a non-significant and negative relationship. However, so he may have found that certain literatures, okay, have indicated there are significant influence. So she implied or she narrated that, well, it is a little bit contradict with a few findings by Clary 2016, Gokan 2016, and so forth. Right? Okay, so you can do that as well. Yeah, this is in chapter 4. Yeah. Another examples, again, innovation capability, right, mediates the relationship between human capital. Yeah, so this is about your mediating effect. So from the results, it was shown supported. So what does it mean? So innovation capability mediates the relationship between human capital because it's found positive. Yeah, I found significant with the p-value less than 0.05. So it means that it has an effect there. So the finding was a little bit consistent. Yeah, okay, with a few findings, a few other findings that she cited the McDowell and also Wasim 2018. Yeah. So in my conclusions, right? Okay, just 1 or 2 minutes more. Okay, just to conclude the last 2 weeks and this week, what we have discussed on the research methodology. Okay, the number 1 principle, you need to restate your research problem. Yeah, in your chapter 3, just highlight what is the research problem all about in just the introduction, maybe just 1 sentence, the focus of the study. And then you need to be able to describe your selected approach. Okay, what research design that you want to use, okay, what are the philosophy, as I've discussed with you, the layers in the research methodology, which is in the chapter 3, yeah, for chapter 3, and then clarify the uncommon methodology that you have used, okay, any uncommon methodology that you have used. For example, you want to use a triangulation methods, yeah, which is very uncommon. Normally people will embark on one, either using quantitative or qualitative, and suddenly you want to use both a mixed method. So you just need to clarify, whatever doing a PhD or DBA, you just need to justify why you are interested to use this design. Okay, and then explain the methods of your data collections. Okay, so that's involved, remember, how you develop the instruments, okay, where do you adopt those items, what are the scales, remember about, I'm sure you know the 4 types of the scales, the ordinal, nominal, interval, and the ratio. Yeah, it's all in this slide. Okay, and then be able to describe the data analysis method. Yeah, describe the data. Okay, you want to use to measure the structural model, the measurement model. So I need to use the discriminant analysis, the convergent and discriminant validities, okay, and using the SmartPLS, okay, and what is it for, okay, and then when you want to use the structural model, you are using the reflective or formative, and some students are using reflective formative models. Okay, so you need to explain to us what are those things. Yeah. Okay. And then justify of course, you need to justify the methodological choices. Yeah. Okay. Explain the obstacles and their solutions. Okay, for example, when you choose the data analysis, okay, why you choose there, what is the any problems that you are facing, because when it comes to submitting your thesis, okay, by then you should be able to tell us what are the obstacles that you are facing. For example, yeah, okay, for example, because of the distance of the respondents from one state to another state, or from one district to another district, so that may impose certain challenge for you to collect enough data. So you can highlight in your research methodology, yeah, in the subsections of data collection, yeah, and then citation of sources determining the methodology choices. And these things you need to, for example, that when you quote Kerji and Morgan, or even when you quote for your qualitative data, you quote grounded theories. Okay, so all those some eminent references you need to cite it in your research methodology chapter. Okay, and research methodology is a crucial chapter to explain how research are being operationalized. Yeah, okay, basically how you're going to embark or to do your research. So in this very simple word, how you're going to do your research. So chapter 3 is the answer to that question. Yeah, okay. And then it requires researcher to explain to what extent the research questions and objectives are met. Okay, from chapter 3, we can, right? A good examiner, they can always tells you, and he can feels that, well, this is the correct research design. This is the correct data, statistical tool to use to analyze your data or to test your hypothesis. Yeah. So don't be so ambitious. Don't be so confident. Sorry, don't be so confident that you may choose the right statistical tools to analyze your data. I came across, for example, when students want to test a comparison, okay, to test a significant difference between two groups, academics and administrator, for example, yeah, and they choose ANOVA. So basically, it is a wrong statistical tool. So I have encountered that during my experience in examining students. Yeah, when you have chosen the wrong statistical tools, so that will violate the whole analysis. Yeah, so you got to rerun the analysis. So that is talking about major corrections and silap-silap hari bulan. Okay, and if you got a very strict examiner, you need to be revival. Yeah, okay. So choose the appropriate research design that suit the objectives and scope of study. So all this needs to be justified. Yeah, why you choose that. And the other part in the research methodology chapter, you need to understand very well your population frame and your sampling design. Yeah. Okay. So how do you draw your sampling design, and what are the techniques that you chose to draw your sample? And then the instrument design and the scale chosen. Okay, so how do you develop those instruments? Whether you are using questionnaire, you are using interview schedules, you are using observation methods. Okay, so there needs instrument. So you need to explain how do you develop. For example, you are using observation methods. Yeah, so this is quite common among childhood study, yeah, a childhood study. They observe the children, the kiddie, okay, how do they behave in the kindergarten, okay? So what kind of observation? They must have the procedure. They can't be saying that, oh, I just sit there and observe for 1 hour. So we need to know the process of your observe and what are the cues that you want to detect from the behaviorals of the children at the kindergarten, yeah? So these are talking about the instrument for the observations, yeah, methods. And then know the appropriate statistical procedures required to analyze the data. The last part, data analysis, okay, requires critical understanding of statistical procedures. This is very challenging. Not everyone are good in statistical procedures, okay? But today we are blessed. We got so many statistical experts we can hire, but still the interpretations of the data, right? Okay, it lies on the capability of us to understand those outputs. Yeah. Okay, so you need to be able to interpret those data. And data interpretation involves presentations of data as well as the informations, and it also involves the ability to imply the findings in the context of the study. Okay, so just to caution you, PhD or DBA is not only place for just seeking knowledge, but it is a fierce battlefield. Yeah, it is actually a very challenging one. So it's just like you are swimming in the ocean. So if there's a rough sea, right? So how do you struggle to swim and to combat with the turbulence, so forth? Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So I'm sure you guys have a very good supervisor. So capture your supervisor's strength to still alive. Yes. So make sure that you work closely with your supervisors. Okay. So on that note, thank you very much. And I wish you guys all the best. And I don't mind to take any 1 or 2 questions before I pass to Prof. Amir. Let me see if there's any question in the chat box. If AVE is less than 0.1, 0.5, what can we do? So we got to go back to the cross-loading items, okay? If there's any items which are not, which are less than 0.5 that we need to remove, that is number 1, okay? If we have ensured that everything is good and AVE is still less than 0.5, okay? So you can, okay, I have an option here. If I ask my students to run the factor analysis, right? So when the factor analysis shows significant, then I say use that principle, even though if AVE is less than 0.5, because the factor analysis is actually confirming the reliability or the appropriateness of the items in the context of our setting, our culture, our locality. Yeah, okay. The other worst scenario, if the AVE is less than 0.5, so meaning that you can't proceed with you may not be able to proceed with your hypothesis testing. That could be the worst possible. Yeah, okay. Okay, this has been a robust delivery. It is a very eye-opening and really equipping. Yes, definitely. I will share after today. Then I will share these slides to all of you. Yeah. Okay. So I hope this slide is actually a summary of all the research methodology. You have that 10 weeks of class. Okay. And I give all the notes for each of those layer or steps involved in chapter 3 and chapter 4. Right, any other questions? Okay, so we don't have any questions. So once again, thank you very much. So I enjoy to have all of you here. So if there's any other things in the future, if I may be able, both me and Dr. Ula, if we are able to help you in the future, so just contact us from time to time. Yeah, okay, so all the best to you, and I end up with wabillahi taufiq, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and have a good day and all the best in your journey in your research as a research student. Thank you very much. I pass over to Madam Fiza or Prof. Amir. Prof, Dr. Zam or Dr. Ong? Where's the any housekeeping? Miss Fiza? Dr. Ong? Well, nobody is here.
Hello, Prof.
Fiza, what time is what time they have to come back for the next session with Prof. Amir?
2:30, Prof.
12?
Kejap saya tengok. I think
I thought it's 12:30 or 2. I can't remember.
itulah saya pun confused. Two, sorry.
We can't hear you.
No, Prof.
We can't hear you.
Tak dengar.
We cannot hear you.
Hello, Prof. Dengar tak?
What time do you have to come back?
At 2.
Oh, at 2. Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, so you need to come back at 2 o'clock. So any other questions before we miss? Also, I thought I should finish at 11:30 actually. Right, because the earlier one is
Yeah.
still okay.
Okay, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
All right, thank you very much. So there's no, for a PhD, okay, from Yunuza Wada, for a PhD questionnaire survey in Central Malaysia, what will be the appropriate number if districts to randomly select for a PhD household survey? All right, okay. So household survey, where is Mr. Yunuza? Can you okay, I need to know a little bit further about your study. Okay, what kind of household survey is that? Mr. Yunuza, if you could just tell me a little bit more, what kind of household survey before I can give my guide to that?
Yes, Prof. It has to do with dog population study. CAP. Knowledge, attitude, and practices.
Of knowledge and practices, knowledge and attitude of what? Who?
Of human, of household. Humans about yes, about dog population and rabies. Rabies.
Rabies? Sorry, I can't get you.
Rabies. Hello.
Hello, yeah.
Yes, it has to do with knowledge, attitude, and practices of humans towards canine rabies. Canine rabies.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. So that is a very wide study, yeah. Okay, it's a very wide, very wide coverage. You need to narrow it down. I know it is important. You want to do it a household. You want to do it based on a population in Malaysia. If you're talking about Central Malaysia, so you know Malaysia is comprises of a 5 zone. So Central is talking about Kuala Lumpur, Seremban, and part of yeah. So you have to base on that geographical area, look at the population first. You have to look at the population of the Central Malaysia. How many populations are there? If let's say the population is about 2 million, then my question, can you afford to go till 2 million? So if you base on Kerji and Morgan, they say 86 is enough. So no, 256 and 286 is good enough. So based on Kerji and Morgan, say 286, then just start 286 then. Yeah.
Okay. Yes,
okay.
Yes, Prof. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. But again, again, must make sure that you get the data for the population in the central of Malaysia. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Prof.
Right. Any other questions before we adjourn? So far, okay. So.
Prof, same link at 2 this afternoon. You come back, right?
Yes, we come back at 2 o'clock. Yeah. All right. Okay. So, dear madam, what can we do when there is no discriminant validity? So, meanings here, maybe the HTMO or factor, and if there's no discriminant, there is a discriminant. Meaning that the value is greater than 0.9. So that is the weaknesses of the items, which you still can proceed with your analysis, but you have to highlight it in the weaknesses of the study. So this could be posed in your weaknesses of the study, which you may discuss why there is no discriminant validity of the constructs. Yeah. So it could be, for my suspicions, so each of the items is actually can represent other construct. Yeah. Okay. So what it needs to be done, so again, as I mentioned, factor analysis is another common method, is actually to see the demarcations of all those items, whether it really falls within the right construct or not. Yeah. Sample for qualitative, is there any limit numbers for that? Okay. To be honest, okay, whatever design that you use, qualitative or quantitative, there's no limit. It's all about the scope of the study. Yeah. Okay. So what is the scope of, where is the scope of your study? Okay. What is the purpose of your study? Go back to your research questions and your research frameworks, and then explain the population frame. Then you decide what is the qualitative, the appropriate sample size for your qualitative design. Yeah. Okay. And to be honest, qualitative design is actually a very small sample, relatively small sample, and it requires a detailed, what I would say, deep diving of an issue to be discussed. Yeah. So why people chose qualitative? Because he wants to really dissect the issues in and out, above and from below, from above and below, from right and left. Yeah. So he wants to ensure the data is being exhaustively analyzed to answer the research questions. Yeah. So that is actually the reason why we use qualitative. It's not for the sake, well, I want to use qualitative because it's a lot easier. No. I know many students think that way. The answer is wrong. Yeah. Okay. Those days, the reason that people choose qualitative because he want to really dwell the issues in detail. Yeah. So that's why qualitative requires a very small number. And if I were to say that normally less than 30. Yeah. Less than 30. Okay. If after analyze the model and I did not get a differences, what do you mean by a differences here? After analyze the model, I did not get differences. Are you saying about the structural model? Okay. If the structural model does not fit, when I say does not fit, meaning the p-value is not significant, and therefore it explains the model is not fit to be embarked. You have to stop there. All right. So if the model is not fit, the F squared, the predictive value is not fit. It explains to you that it implies that the model is not fit. Therefore, you will not be able to proceed with the and further analysis, your multivariate analysis or your hypothesis testing. Then on this note, you have to go back to your research framework. This is an exceptional condition. Yeah. Okay. I know Annie was asking just now, if let's say mediating is not significant, should I go land? So in that case, there is a no, right? So in this case, when the model is deemed not to be fit, because when the structural model is not fit, therefore everything has to be stopped So when you have to be stopped, so meaning I cannot analyze further. I can't even have my hypothesis to be tested. Yes, it's true. So what you need to do is that you have to go back to your research framework, right? Relook at your research framework. Then you have to describe and explain in your chapter 4, okay? That you have to make some adjustment to your research framework, present the new research framework, okay? Analyze again the reliability and the construct validity and the discriminant validity prior to proceed to the structural modeling. Yeah, this is a very rare case. Yeah, from a quantitative study of 400 participants, I need to do a pre and post study to complement my qualitative findings. How can I extract the group from that study? Do I need to recontact them or should I look for a new group? Okay. In your pilot study, those who have included in your pilot study, they cannot be included in your real data collection. The respondents for your real data collection, they cannot be included. Yep. Okay. So how can I extract the group? Yes, you can extract the group. Okay, but you cannot include it in your final data collections later. Yeah. Okay. Right. So I have to leave now. Okay, so once again, I wish you all the best. Have a good rest, have a good lunch, and you shall continue back with Prof. Amir at 2 o'clock. Unfortunately, I will not be able to join you at 2 o'clock, but if there's any questions, so by all means, you can just WhatsApp or email me. Yeah, thank you very much. So have a good day.
Prof.
Hello, Prof.
Yes,
Boleh
Alice.
jadikan saya host?
Okay.
Jadikan saya host, Hafizah MS.
Hafizah, wait a minute. Go to participant. More. Make host, yeah? Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prof.
Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
I hope you learned some.